This podcast is dedicated to sharing the practice of meditation, the philosophy of Western Buddhism, and the refuge and love of our TBC Sangha. Offering solutions that are simple, practical, and true. We believe happiness and better health are available to all people and for all people. We are here each week to lend wisdom and support to all who are making or considering making this journey. This is On the Range. Hello and welcome. This is the second episode of Home on the Range. I'm your host, Whit, and I'm happy you're here and honored to offer this presentation that features Western Buddhism, meditation, and the power of the Sangha. A special shout out to the TV Sangha that I'm a member of. Whether you're new to these subjects or a longtime practitioner, this show is about how to live a happier and healthier life. It is my pleasure this week to welcome our co-host, Miss Jordan Collie, to the show. Jordan, welcome.
Hi there. I'm so excited to see this come to fruition, Whit.
Yeah, this is very exciting. You and I have we met at TBC at the Sangha through the practice, but I always think it's interesting. You and I met and we would talk, have these great conversations, and then 4 months would go by, and then I would run into you again, and it was kind of the same way over and over. So when we decided to go with the podcast, so happy you wanted to be a part of it, and super excited about what you bring to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always found it interesting talking to you that, like you mentioned, that no matter how long of the time I went on, we'd still found each other, and that jumping straight below the surface. And I think like-minded in that sense of like to dig deep in those topics. And I'm excited and compassionate about just talking about them today, and especially getting to share it with Sangha. So,
yeah, I never felt like there was a lot of small talk, and maybe that's just but it was like always this deep conversation in the middle of the room with a bunch of people around us, and I always really valued that. So again, having you a part of this is very exciting, and it will certainly be valuable to both the show and to our listeners, who I suppose are one of the same. But
yeah.
So let's start. Do you want to tell me or tell us a little bit just about yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first off, there's so many people that I have come to love and know through Sangha. And then on the other hand, there are so many new people. So I am more than excited to meet the people coming in and listening for the first time. And so a little bit of my background is I've been coming to TBC for the last 4 years, on and off. And I just immediately fell in love with the plays, the teachings, the teachers, and found myself pretty quickly in a retreat. And we could probably talk about that a little bit more. However, I immediately wanted to have service. So I threw myself up on stage. Ricky was awesome. She showed me the handpan. I tell many people that story. So whoever wants to play the handpan at service, you can always come up and I'll show you the drum. But so I started playing music, and I started working the retreats and just really being helpful wherever I could, and just deepening my practice alone through service. So that is so important to me, which is another reason why I was excited to do the podcast. But so if I can be helpful, then I will. And I've found myself through Sangha in all sorts of places, bringing food, helping people move, playing music for Tai Chi and classes and retreats. And so it's just a wellspring of resource, and I'm very excited to be a part of it.
So for those people who maybe don't know, Sangha is the, I'm going to say the Buddhist term for the congregation. That's not a perfect definition, but it describes, I think, at least for now, kind of what the Sangha is. So you mentioned a little bit about your experience to this point. Is there a certain thing that drew you to Buddhism, you think? Or is that just who you are?
That's funny. That's a funny question. And, I was contemplating as I was getting ready to do that question. I hadn't asked myself that before. As a small child, I can absolutely say I wasn't thinking I was going to grow up to be a Buddhist practitioner. But I will say that when I was little, I sensed something deeper and I couldn't really quiet my mind. I always experienced emotions intensely and I felt like an empath. And I had all these traits that I felt like I didn't have any direction with. So, I had went to some traditional, churches when I was younger, and it didn't resonate with me full-heartedly. And once I started thumbing the books at the library of some of these Eastern kind of mystic books and opening up these, worlds and seeing these words, I just felt drawn. And like many people, I just hopped online and typed in Buddhist temple near me, kind of tongue in cheek, and found TBC. And when I went there and realized that there was a community of fellow practitioners who encouraged people to be on a spiritual Buddhist path, I just felt so calm and like I had returned home. So in short, I'm not sure if I picked, that path or, it was just designed in general for me already.
It's funny too, because of where we are, our TBC is out of Kansas City, but we are both residents of the United States of America. Because that's not our culture, I think that most people in our Sangha have that experience. They've tried other spiritual endeavors, and for whatever reason, it didn't take for them. I think it's a big turning point for people also who make that decision to explore other options. Because at that point, that seems simple enough, but at that point that you're really taking over that whatever that spiritual journey is going to be for you, you're taking responsibility for it. Now, it may take you hundreds of books and a bunch of visits and thousands of hours, for all I know, until you find what works. I think the other interesting thing about Buddhism in general is that because of the practice and because of how the lessons and what the Buddha found, frankly, you become more of your true self. So if you're going to make that journey, you do feel comfortable, I think, at some point with the Sangha. And it may take a while, but I just find that so interesting. People sometimes struggle with that seeking, trying to find where they fit in. But that's that first step, that first, moving in the right direction towards whatever it is. It doesn't have to be Buddhism, certainly. It could be whatever, whatever speaks to your heart. But so many people just are handed their spiritual beliefs and then they just, they it's kind of a plug and play or checking a box. And it's not so much about growth. It's more about just fulfilling what you were taught to do. It's okay if that's where people are, if that's where they are. But I think there's so many people that want more. They don't want to be told. They don't want to be judged. They want to grow. They want to be their true self. They're looking for someplace where they're like-minded individuals. And at least my experience, and I think yours, is that's kind of what we found with Buddhism and certainly with TPC. So the other question I had just on these deep subjects, we practice Western Buddhism. Is there an easy answer as to what you think the difference or how it's different for you between maybe the Eastern approach and Western Buddhism? Before you answer, Jordan, I want to say on record that neither one of us profess to being Eastern religion philosophers or scholars. We're just people who follow our art. So having said that, I don't want anybody to hold you accountable for your thoughts on this. And I certainly don't want them to hold me accountable because I'm not accountable for anything. That should be in the intro of the show. So please go ahead and try to answer that now.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for prefacing that. You said earlier that you were a seeker, and I think that's absolutely a great description of what I am too. And so, as I've kind of sought after answers, I've realized there's not just one that's going to fill that cup. So, I think the division between East and West is pretty simple, that the East is in the East and the West is just adapted for places like Europe and US and home here. And, I think the traditions, and there's obviously rituals and chanting and temples, and people live monastically in the East. And there's a whole lineage that, we don't always necessarily touch on here in the West. I would say that we focus more kind of on meditation and mindfulness, that healing aspect, the psychology, science, and it's just overall just more casual, which I like that, because as beautiful as I see some of these, Eastern traditions, especially when we've had the monks visit us, and if you've never experienced that before, please come, because they've done puja rituals and enchanted in Tibet, and it's gorgeous, and you can sense an old quality towards it that just can reverb through your whole body. But I understand that that's not the culture I was raised in, so they're speaking words and almost a separate language than how I've come to understand Buddhism. But the great part is that it's all inclusive. So us regular people and can join in and experience the Dharma and encourage each other with this collective experience. So hopefully that was a good answer.
There's a couple of things that really highlights kind of not the differences, but just what is happening with Western Buddhism, because the East has 2,500 years of infrastructure that we simply will never have. I find that to be a real strength, though, of Western Buddhism, the fact that it's evolving in real time. We certainly borrow, as you mentioned, some of the chanting and certainly the lessons and the stories, and there's still power in all those things. We're also taking people and offering a refuge and offering the chance for them to come and grow and develop and really lead if that's what they want to do. But also, I always feel like with Western Buddhism, especially, if you want holiness and sacredness, you're responsible for bringing that. And it takes certainly some time, and you need to practice, and you have to develop the space, and you have to be in touch with your heart to do that. But it's not like any other philosophy or religion in that, you have kind of that responsibility. You can sit in the Sangha and you can attend and listen to the lessons, and you can certainly gain some peace of mind. But also, it's not limited to that. We have teachers. We don't really have leaders. There is no chain of command. We're asking all of our members to grow and to evolve and help, develop a better world by being happier and healthier. That's all. So I love that about Western Buddhism in particular. It's not plug and play in terms of you got to do this and this and this, and you can't do this. There are no rules. We expect you to be responsible for how you act. We also trust, and frankly, we know that if you're true to yourself, you're going to be a good human being. That's your Buddha nature. Your Christ nature is also a term that we hear sometimes at TBC. So that's my big, and like I said, that's what made me think when you were talking a little bit about kind of the difference. So let's shift gears for just a minute and talk. I I came to Western Buddhism because I started practicing meditation. I always think I'm a little bit different than a lot of people in our Sangha, because most people come because they want to be Buddhists and they want the peace and the, and that's great. And then they learn that meditation is part of it. And my journey was kind of the opposite. I started to practice and somehow got involved with TVC and was better for it. It took me a while to understand that what I was learning sitting could be enhanced and shared with the Sangha. So that was a very, very long way to start this question, but what does your practice look like now?
So my practice, I would say with meditation, just right off the bat, that it's not linear. So you're not going to just grasp the fullness of meditating perfectly at some point and then keep that. So there's different stages in my life, just like everybody else, where my meditation practice can be very strong and deep and peaceful. And then other times, messy and, not so particular and when I'm doing it. I want to go back to kind of the meditation retreat. And I learned there that meditation doesn't need to be done while just sitting, stiff back with my shoulders, back in this posture, that you can meditate, as you're walking, or, Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about walking as if your feet were kissing the ground. And I love that expression because it really brings stillness to the meditation and the moment of the meditation. So the quality around my meditation changes. A lot of people know I just had a baby 6 months ago. So I really have to work meditation into the small moments that I have for myself, instead of being hard on myself and said, "Oh, I didn't meditate today," and being hard and judgmental. So I would say that there's a little less time that I have to sit on the mat, but I do try to make it a priority and then make the time for it, even when it's hard. There's that accountability once you start meditating that kind of starts to just happen naturally, where you know what works. It becomes, something that you look forward to doing. So that's kind of that short end. Of course, the part of me wants to say I'm great at that, but that's that ego that comes in and
Right.
You're always yearning to, I think, to be good, and good at things. But I'm okay with being imperfect, especially when it comes to meditating.
Right. And I think it's so important to adapt, or adopt might be a better word, fairly early as you start practice, trying to understand that you can't judge the practice. And it's still a challenge. It's especially difficult for the West because we weren't brought up with this, because we are brought up to be good and we want to know what the score is. We want to know, that's how we were brought up and who we are. But it's one of the few things, maybe the only thing, that you do where judgment has no role in it at all. You can sit there and sometimes 30 minutes go by very quickly, and it's deep and it's relaxing and it feels great. You can't wait to do it again. And sometimes it's a slog, and there's no way you're going to make it, and you're never doing this again because it's stupid. After 22 years, I still have days like that, but now I laugh about them because I've been through it. But the thing is that you still get the benefits. There's no difference. I don't care if you see colors or hear songs or what sort of magical thing happens. That's no more valuable than the first time you sit for 2 minutes and you hate every minute of it, because it's just not something that can be judged. And it gives those results either way. And so it's difficult, especially for people new to the practice, to understand that. So many people say things like, I can't meditate. I'm not good at it. Well, how would you know? There is no good at it. There is no school. Some of the Eastern masters of meditation like point out that, beginner's mind is really what you want. It's that, it's that area that's still maybe free of ego, and you're just kind of white knuckling it, staying there with the breath. So, if it feels bad, if you hate it, just remember you're the one who's making it feel bad and hating it. Now, sometimes there's physical, it's uncomfortable sitting. I've got to the point where I make sure that I'm just as comfortable as I possibly can be, because it doesn't have to be. In the East, there may be some real reasoning for, hey, you've got to be on the cushion in a lotus position. But we don't have that on the Western side, and we're better for it, in my opinion. So if that means that you need to lay down on your back, great. If that means you sit in a chair, great. It's all there for you. And nobody, at least not your practice, is going to judge you for how you approach it. Just be sincere.
I always love that joke. Are you noticing that irritation on the in breath or the out breath?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But so many people get so caught up in that, it's just, again, it's how we were brought up, and it's hard to look somebody in the eye and go, hey, you've got it. All we're asking you to do is forget everything you've ever been taught about, judging and wanting. Hey, you know what? You probably know this better than anybody. I point this out, though. Judging and wanting is something that we are handed almost right after we become aware as a living creature, because your parents are asking you, what do you want? Do you like this? They're trying to communicate with you. They're trying to teach you to communicate. And that's where it starts. They're in charge of making sure that you're healthy and happy. And that's how we do it. So pretty quickly, you become a wanting, judging machine. And so it's very difficult. That's why this path can take so long. There's no shortcut either. It'll happen, or different things will peel off when they're supposed to. But what's it like? Do you practice with the baby at this point, or with your baby, or, is that not possible? Where are you at with that?
So you're inspiring me. I will definitely say that. So thank you.
You didn't have enough on your plate.
But no, I love that idea of meditating with the baby. Here's where I talk a little bit about pre-baby. When I was pregnant with him, I meditated more, and I really feel like he's a product of that, and such a patient and calm and grounded little guy. And he's my teacher at the moment. So I'm able to, through meditation, see the space and the stillness between the moments with him. And I owe that all to meditation, because I was able to practice in a way that I could ground myself and be more grateful for every moment as I notice that it's fleeting. And that's another, topic on that Buddhism covers a lot of, is impermanence. And I will say that through meditation and that concept of impermanence, I'm just experiencing parenting completely different. So a lot of time, I have a 17-year-old. Well, she'll be 17 next month. So I'm parenting in dualism completely. Because I have this baby, and then I have this teen, and they're both trying in different ways, but the appreciation that I have is just incredible. And it really has spoke from and emerged from this practice. So I'm able to connect to something bigger when I meditate. And I can't necessarily completely describe it because it's such an individual experience, but the collective time that we have and the collective experience when we get to talk about it, it's so exciting. But I will say that it's definitely individual. So I'm absolutely more inspired to get in more meditation time and include the baby. Thank you for that.
Very good with suggestions on how to mother your child. Well, it's not me to do any of it. So, I think it's interesting as you practice, you're sitting there, you're being aware, whatever comes up, you're accepting. I always tell people you're developing awareness and acceptance. You're also developing patience, because You're sitting here by yourself, supposedly not doing anything. You've got to give yourself that. And that patience grows, just like awareness and acceptance grows. One of the things, maybe the most beautiful thing about practicing is that those hours, for lack of a better term, those skills automatically transfer to the rest of your life. It's not like you stand up after you meditate, okay, I'm going to be more aware. It happens. And so it starts to encompass whether you're sitting, whether it's internal or external, you're just more aware, more accepting, and more patient. And so I was listening to you talk about how this relationship is with your newborn or your 6-month-old now. Just reminded me of that, and how you really, at first, maybe you don't notice it right away. You just notice that you're feeling better. I think that's how I experienced it. But I think it's just beautiful. And that, if that's all you do, if you don't want to, Buddhism doesn't interest you and you don't want to, go from that, that's great. But there's just, less stress, less suffering leads to more happiness. And I always tell people, if you don't want to meditate for you, do it for everybody who's going to live with you, because that can be very handy. So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love that quote that Ram Dass talks about. And he says to be a fruit tree in a world where people keep shaking you. And it's just something cute. And I mean, this is part of the human condition. We're all going to be experiencing some way or another fear, anxiety, grief, love, heartache. I mean, the whole encompassing thing that makes us human. And I like meditation and the Buddhism because it helps me organize my thoughts on how to experience all of that, and then, squeeze the quality out of it.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. You start to develop that skill to decide how you're going to react and start to understand that, hey, if I'm angry or sad or whatever it is, not that there's anything wrong with the emotions, but I'm the one, I'm pushing my own button. I pick that, so it's okay to have that moment of anger. But hey, before we snap at somebody or react in a way that's less than positive, let's think about it. And the other thing, and it's not so much that there's no righteousness in Buddhism. And that's one of the things I truly love about it, because we spend so much time trying to be right, and that goes back to judging and wanting certain things. But you want to be right, and then when you start to notice how that whole process works, you start to realize that, hey, nobody cares if I'm right. It hurts me, and it probably hurts the people that I've judged as being wrong or different. So there's no real value there. And it's hard to connect when I've already judged that I'm right and somebody else is wrong. So, yeah, it's just interesting what a practice can give. So I also wanted to ask you, we're both members of the TBC Sangha. That's where we met. That's how this team formed to get this podcast rolling. What's the Sangha mean to you? Just in general, what's the power there?
Well, first and foremost, it's absolutely the support and the encouragement to deepen my practice. And, the community is just caring and, like you touched on, non-judgmental. So I really felt like I can come in and be myself, and I don't have to wear a mask or, be embellished by a role that I am. It's so interesting because if you talk to people, they have all kinds of different backgrounds. And so it's just a wellspring to learn from people. And that really inspires me, But the shared wisdom, of course, I love that I get to sit with people like Robert Brummett and Victor and have access to these teachers and sit and listen in a very kind of old school way of hearing. I always picture like these great philosophers sitting under a tree, passing these wise words. And, so much gets lost in the technology nowadays. And there's just something organic with coming on a Sunday and sitting and listening to someone and offering their attention undividedly and hearing what they have to say. And that's just an excellent place. And the inspiration that I get from going on Sundays too is just will keep me coming back. So in short, that's a little bit about Sangha that I love and appreciate.
The other thing I really like is once you, as you develop and get to be more of who you are, like you said, you don't have a mask. So you start to see places where you want to serve, and a Sangha gives you that opportunity. If there's the love, the support, the wisdom. And the other beautiful thing about TBC in particular, but Sanghas in general, is no one cares where you came from or what you've gone through. They want you to be happier and healthier. And this is going to sound weird, but also nobody cares if you cover it up. And not only in a bad way, but I mean, it's entirely up to you. If you want to be there, we want you there. If you don't want to be there, don't, it's not that kind of thing. Nobody's keeping score.
Yeah, you never have to apologize for not showing up.
Right.
Yeah, and I love that. There's no no judgment. No judgment. That's so incredibly important. And both services are great. I like the variations sometimes.
Right. If you see them both, you're like, when the wheels come off, that's when the presentation is best. So I want to thank you for being part of this. We've already discussed this, but you're going to be the regular co-host quite a bit of the time, whatever that means. So looking forward to that. Really appreciate you sharing. I think the only other thing I wanted to add is just that this offering can be found on Spotify, and you can also find us on Discord, on the TBC Discord channel. You can leave questions and comments there. You can leave them on Spotify. We also have an email address, and that is homeontherangepodcast@gmail.com. Jordan, thank you very much for being on. I look forward to working with you. We will ask more embarrassing questions next week, and away we'll go. Thank you very much. And to all of our listeners, we wish you happy trails.
Namaste.
Thank you to Mr. Tim Behrens for producing this episode, and thank you to Brad Athey for providing the music. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey as we discuss meditation and Western Buddhism and celebrate the path to a happier and healthier life. Less suffering and more joy are available to all people. While we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we react. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded and find peace in the simple, practical solutions. This is Home on the Range, wishing you happy trails.